The evening sky was turning deep purple as Marcus Johnson loosened his tie and turned his car toward home. After 14 hours at the law firm, the 34-year-old corporate attorney wanted nothing more than dinner and sleep. The dashboard clock read 8:17 p.m. when red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. Marcus checked his speedometer, 5 miles under the limit. He signaled properly, pulled to the curb, and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen. These were habits his father had taught him years ago. Officer Richard Benson approached with a flashlight beam that swept across Marcus's face, then around the car's interior. Marcus noticed the officer's hand already resting on his holster. License and registration, Officer Benson demanded without explaining why he'd stopped Marcus. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being pulled over?" Marcus asked politely, his voice steady despite the familiar knot forming in his stomach. "I'll ask the questions," Officer Benson snapped. "Your license. Now." Marcus slowly reached for his wallet. "I'm just getting my license, officer." He narrated his movements, another habit learned from childhood. As Marcus handed over his documents, Officer Benson's expression shifted subtly upon seeing the address in the upscale neighborhood and the business card that accidentally slipped out identifying Marcus as an attorney at Preston & Mitchell, one of Chicago's most prestigious law firms. "Step out of the vehicle," Officer Benson ordered. "May I ask why, sir? I don't believe I've broken any traffic laws." Officer Benson's face hardened. "I smell something suspicious. Step out now." Marcus knew this tactic well, both professionally and personally. "Officer, respectfully, I do not consent to any searches of my person or vehicle. If you're not detaining me for a specific violation, I'd like to continue home." Something dangerous flashed in Officer Benson's eyes. "Are you telling me how to do my job?" His hand gripped his flashlight tighter. "Out. Off. The car." Marcus weighed his options. As an attorney, he knew his rights perfectly well. As a black man facing an increasingly agitated officer alone on a dark street, he also understood the realities that textbooks didn't cover. "I'm opening my door very slowly," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. Once Marcus stood on the sidewalk, Officer Benson immediately pushed him against the car. "Hands behind your back." "This is unnecessary, officer," Marcus said, feeling the cold metal of handcuffs close around his wrists. "I've cooperated fully." "Keep talking, and I'll add resisting arrest," Officer Benson muttered as he roughly patted Marcus down, finding nothing but a cell phone and keys. Without Marcus's consent, the officer began searching the vehicle, pulling out folders of legal documents and tossing them carelessly onto the seat. Finding nothing incriminating after several minutes, Benson's frustration visibly grew. "What division of the department handles your internal affairs?" Marcus asked quietly. Officer Benson froze momentarily, then smirked. "You're being detained for disorderly conduct and resisting an officer." "On what grounds?" Marcus asked, maintaining composure despite the humiliation of standing handcuffed on his regular route home, as passing cars slowed to stare. "You'll find out at the station," Benson answered, guiding Marcus toward the patrol car with unnecessary force. As Marcus ducked his head to enter the back seat, he noticed the small camera on the dashboard of his own car, still recording everything. Sometimes, preparation met opportunity in unexpected ways. The fluorescent lights of the police station buzzed overhead as Marcus stood at the booking desk. His expensive suit, normally a symbol of success, now made him feel out of place among the harsh surroundings. The handcuffs had left red marks on his wrists. "Name," barked the desk sergeant without looking up. "Marcus Johnson," he answered, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. From across the room, Officer Benson was already filling out paperwork, occasionally glancing up with a satisfied expression. Marcus could see his pen moving quickly, no doubt creating a version of events that bore little resemblance to reality. A female officer led Marcus to be fingerprinted, pressing each finger onto the scanner with mechanical efficiency. The flash of the camera for his mugshot temporarily blinded him. Throughout it all, Marcus remained silent, mentally recording every detail, every face, every procedure that deviated from protocol. "You get one phone call," the female officer said, gesturing to a wall-mounted phone. Marcus nodded his thanks. Most people in his situation would call family, but Marcus had a different plan. He dialed a number he knew by heart. "Samantha Williams," answered a crisp voice. "Sam, it's Marcus. I've been arrested," he said quietly. There was a brief pause. "Location: Precinct 18. Charges are apparently disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Officer Richard Benson." "That name sounds familiar," Samantha said, her tone shifting. "Marcus, don't say anything else. Not a word. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Marcus replaced the receiver and allowed himself to be led to a holding cell. The concrete bench was cold through his suit pants. Across from him, a young man with bloodshot eyes stared blankly at the floor. In the corner, an older man snored loudly. Time crawled by. Marcus closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing while his mind worked. In his head, he began drafting a detailed account of everything that had happened, organizing the facts chronologically, noting timestamps whenever possible. Years of preparing legal briefs had trained his memory to capture details others might miss. Through the bars, he could see Officer Benson laughing with another officer, occasionally glancing in Marcus's direction. Benson didn't know that the dashboard camera had been recording, that his actions and words were preserved as evidence. He didn't know that Samantha Williams headed the civil rights division of their law firm, or that she had successfully prosecuted 3 police misconduct cases in the past year alone. When a new shift officer appeared at the cell door 2 hours later, Marcus stood up. "Johnson, your lawyer's here," the officer announced, sounding slightly confused. Most detainees waited until morning for legal representation. In a small interview room with chipped paint and a wobbly table, Samantha was waiting, her leather portfolio open and a pen poised. Her expression softened momentarily when she saw Marcus, then returned to professional focus. "Are you hurt?" she asked first. "No." Angry, but not hurt. She nodded once. "Good. Tell me everything, starting from when you left the office." Marcus recounted the events precisely, Samantha's pen moving rapidly across her legal pad. When he mentioned the dashboard camera, her eyebrows raised slightly. "That could be crucial," she said. "If they impound your car." "The footage uploads automatically to my cloud account," Marcus assured her. "It should already be there." A ghost of a smile crossed Samantha's face. Officer Benson picked the wrong car to pull over. As they spoke, Marcus could hear Benson in the hallway, his voice carrying through the thin door. "Just some hotshot who thinks being a lawyer makes him above the law," Benson was saying to someone. "He'll learn." Marcus and Samantha exchanged glances. Yes, someone was about to learn something important, but it wouldn't be Marcus. The morning sun streamed through the blinds of Marcus' apartment as he sat at his kitchen table, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold beside his laptop. Released on bail at 3 a.m., he had barely slept, his mind too active with planning. On screen was the dashboard camera footage, crystal clear evidence of everything that had happened. Marcus pressed play again, watching Officer Benson approach his car, hearing the officer's tone shift from professional to aggressive without provocation. The audio captured every word, including Benson's muttered comments when he thought Marcus couldn't hear. Most importantly, it showed Marcus being respectful throughout the encounter, directly contradicting the police report. His phone buzzed. Samantha calling. "I'd spoken with the partners," she said without preamble. "They're outraged. The firm is behind you completely if you want to pursue this." "I do," Marcus replied, "but not as the client. I want to handle this myself." A pause. "That's unusual. Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." Marcus's voice was firm. "This isn't just about me." After hanging up, Marcus drove to the office, nodding to the weekend security guard. Instead of going to his usual corner office, he headed to the firm's law library. For the next several hours, he pulled case files of similar incidents, studying precedents, judgment amounts, and successful strategies. By mid-afternoon, paralegal Thomas Rodriguez found him surrounded by open books and scattered notes. "Samantha said you might need these," Thomas said, placing a folder on the table. "Officer Benson's service record. We requested it last year for the Williams case." Marcus's eyebrows rose as he opened the folder. "There's a pattern. 17 complaints in 15 years, Thomas confirmed. 3 of them formal. All buried." Marcus read through the complaints, all from Black or Latino drivers, all dismissed due to insufficient evidence. The Williams case had been settled quietly, the record sealed. Marcus felt a cold anger building, not just for himself, but for those who lacked the resources to fight back. "I need everything on Judge Eleanor Reynolds," Marcus said. "She's presiding over my hearing." Thomas nodded. On it. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus lived a double life. By day, he handled his regular corporate clients. By night, he prepared his case, reviewing police procedural regulations, studying the officer's testimony patterns in previous cases, and practicing his arguments until they were flawless. He declined the district attorney's offer to drop the charges in exchange for not pursuing the civil case. "They're worried," Samantha observed as they shared a late dinner at the office. "You could take the deal." Marcus shook his head. "This isn't about making the charges disappear. It's about accountability." The weekend before the hearing, Marcus drove to a neighborhood across town, the address listed on one of Benson's previous complaints. The woman who answered the door was hesitant until Marcus explained why he was there. "Nobody believed me," she said, inviting him in. "They said without evidence it was my word against his." Marcus listened as she described an encounter eerily similar to his own. By the time he left, he had contact information for 2 other complainants willing to testify about their experiences with Officer Benson. Back home, Marcus laid out his suit for court, not his usual power suit, but something more subdued. His strategy was taking shape. Let Benson build his false narrative first, then systematically dismantle it. The evidence was organized, the arguments prepared. As he finally drifted towards sleep, Marcus thought about his father's words years ago. "Sometimes, son, you have to be twice as prepared to be considered half as good." Tomorrow, being twice as prepared would be exactly what was needed. The courthouse stood tall against the morning sky, its stone steps already busy with people hurrying to various hearings. Marcus arrived early, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that was professional but not flashy. He carried a simple leather briefcase containing only what he needed, organized evidence, carefully tabbed legal references, and the dashboard camera footage on a secured thumb drive. In the hallway outside Courtroom C, Marcus spotted Officer Benson standing with the assistant district attorney. Benson wore his dress uniform, medals displayed prominently on his chest. He laughed at something the prosecutor said, then noticed Marcus. The officer's smile faded, replaced by a look of mild annoyance, the kind reserved for an inconvenience, not a threat. Marcus nodded politely and took a seat on a nearby bench, reviewing his notes one final time. His heart beat steadily in his chest. This wasn't his first time in court, but it was his first time sitting at the defendant's table. "All rise," called the bailiff as Judge Eleanor Reynolds entered. She was known for her efficiency and no-nonsense approach. Marcus had appeared before her twice in civil matters. He doubted she would remember him. Case number 47,293, City versus Marcus Johnson. Charges of disorderly conduct and resisting an officer, announced the clerk. The assistant district attorney stepped forward. "Thomas Weber for the prosecution, Your Honor." "And counsel for the defendant?" Judge Reynolds asked, peering over her reading glasses. Marcus rose. "Marcus Johnson, Your Honor. I'll be representing myself in this matter." A flicker of surprise crossed the judge's face, but she simply nodded. "Very well. Are both sides ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," they answered in unison. Weber presented the state's case first. He described Marcus as confrontational and uncooperative during a routine traffic stop. Officer Benson was called to the stand, where he sat straight-backed and confident. "Officer Benson," Weber began, "please tell the court what happened on the evening of April 15th. Benson recounted his version of events smoothly, as if reading from a well-rehearsed script. According to him, Marcus had been driving erratically, refused to comply with simple commands, and displayed an aggressive attitude that necessitated restraint. His behavior escalated to the point where I felt officer safety was at risk," Benson concluded. "Thank you, officer. No further questions," Weber said, returning to his seat. Judge Reynolds turned to Marcus. "Your witness, Mr. Johnson." Marcus stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket. "Thank you, Your Honor." He approached the witness stand, stopping at precisely the right distance, close enough to establish presence but not so close as to appear intimidating. The courtroom was silent. "Officer Benson," Marcus began, his voice clear and measured, "how long have you been with the Chicago Police Department?" 15 years this June," Benson answered proudly. "And in those 15 years, have you received any specialized training in recognizing indicators of intoxication or drug use?" Benson straightened. "Yes, standard field sobriety training and drug recognition." Marcus nodded appreciatively. "And when you pulled me over, you indicated you suspected drug use or possession. Is that correct?" "That's correct." "What specific behaviors did I exhibit that suggested impairment?" Benson hesitated slightly. "Your eyes appeared glassy, and I detected what I believed to be the odor of marijuana." "I see," Marcus said. "Before we continue, I'd like to introduce myself properly to the court." He turned toward Judge Reynolds. "Your Honor, I'm Marcus Johnson, J.D., Harvard Law School, class of 2015. I'm currently a partner at Preston & Mitchell, specializing in corporate law." He turned back to Officer Benson, whose expression had shifted subtly. "Now, Officer Benson, let's discuss what actually happened that evening." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the officer's face as he realized this would not be the routine hearing he had expected. A new energy filled the courtroom as Marcus began his cross-examination. Gone was the polite corporate attorney. In his place stood a skilled litigator with purpose in every movement and question. "Officer Benson, in your report, you stated that I was driving erratically. Could you please describe exactly what you observed?" Marcus asked. "You were swerving between lanes," Benson replied confidently. "And was there any other traffic on that stretch of road at that time?" Benson frowned slightly. "Not much. It was evening." "So there were no witnesses to this erratic driving?" "Not that I'm aware of." Marcus nodded, then walked to his table, retrieving a document. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Exhibit A, the maintenance records for the street cameras at the intersection of Lincoln and Fifth, showing they were fully operational on the night in question." Judge Reynolds accepted the document. Marcus continued, "Officer Benson, are you aware that those cameras have a clear view of the stretch of road where you claim I was driving erratically?" A muscle twitched in Benson's jaw. "I wasn't aware of camera placement." "No." "I see," Marcus said, his voice calm. "Now, you also stated that you smelled marijuana in my vehicle. Did you find any illegal substances during your search?" "No, but..." "A simple yes or no will suffice." "Officer." "No." Marcus walked back to his table and picked up a slim folder. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit B, the results of the drug test I voluntarily took the morning after my arrest, showing no substances in my system." Judge Reynolds raised an eyebrow as she reviewed the document. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Officer Benson," Marcus continued, "how many traffic stops have you conducted in the past year?" "I don't know the exact number." "Hundreds." "And of those hundreds, approximately how many involve black male drivers?" "Objection." Weber stood up. "Relevance? I'm establishing a pattern. Your Honor, Marcus replied calmly. I'll allow it, Judge Reynolds said. The witness will answer. Benson shrugged. I don't keep track of that. I stop vehicles based on violations, not who's driving. I understand, Marcus said. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit C. Officer Benson's stop records for the past 3 years, obtained through a formal records request. He handed copies to the judge and prosecutor. These records show that 72% of Officer Benson's discretionary stops involved minority drivers, in a precinct that is 31% minority. Statistically significant, wouldn't you agree, officer? Benson's face hardened. Numbers can be manipulated. Indeed they can, Marcus agreed, which is why I'd now like to present Exhibit D. Marcus walked to the computer station and inserted his thumb drive. With the court's permission, I'd like to play the video from my dashboard camera, which recorded our entire interaction. The courtroom fell silent as the video began playing on the large screen. Clear audio captured every word of the exchange. There was no erratic driving, no smell of marijuana mentioned, only Benson's increasingly aggressive tone as Marcus politely asserted his rights. When the video showed Benson forcefully removing Marcus from the car without cause, several people in the gallery gasped. Judge Reynolds' expression grew severe. As the recording ended, Marcus turned to face Benson. Officer, does this video accurately represent our interaction that night? Benson's face had lost its color. That's not. There must be. Yes or no, Officer Benson? Judge Reynolds interjected sharply. Benson looked down. Yes. One final question, Marcus said. In your sworn statement, you claimed I was belligerent and threatening. Was that statement accurate? The silence in the courtroom was heavy as Benson realized the trap. If he said yes, the video proved he was lying. If he said no, he was admitting to filing a false report. I may have misremembered some details, Benson finally said. Marcus nodded once. No further questions, Your Honor. The courtroom was unusually quiet as Judge Reynolds removed her glasses and placed them on the bench. The spectators, the court reporter, even the bailiff seemed to be holding their breath. In light of the evidence presented, all charges against Marcus Johnson are dismissed, she announced. Her gaze shifted to Officer Benson, still in the witness box. Officer, I'm deeply troubled by the discrepancies between your sworn testimony and the video evidence. I'll be referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review. Marcus stood at his table, his expression composed despite the victory. Thank you, Your Honor. Before we conclude, I'd like to make a motion. Proceed. Mr. Johnson, I move for sanctions against Officer Benson for perjury and misconduct. Additionally, I'm filing a civil rights case against both Officer Benson personally and the department. Marcus handed a thick document to the court clerk. The paperwork is ready for submission. The prosecutor's jaw dropped. Weber quickly gathered his papers. Your Honor, the city would request time to review any civil claims before. You'll have the standard response period, Mr. Weber, Judge Reynolds interrupted. This hearing is adjourned. As the gavel struck, Officer Benson finally understood the full situation. This wasn't just about fighting a wrongful arrest. He was now the defendant in a much larger case. His eyes followed Marcus, seeing him truly for the first time. Outside the courtroom, reporters who had been tipped off about the case crowded around Marcus. Mr. Johnson, can you comment on the dismissal? Asked a young woman holding a microphone. Justice was served today, but this case represents a larger issue, Marcus replied. My training as an attorney gave me tools most citizens don't have. Another reporter pushed forward. Is it true you're a partner at Preston and Mitchell? Yes, Marcus confirmed. I specialize in corporate law, but our firm has a robust civil rights division that handles cases like this regularly. From the courtroom doorway, Officer Benson watched the impromptu press conference, his face pale. He turned to find his union representative already on the phone, looking concerned. You didn't tell me he was an attorney, the rep whispered, covering the mouthpiece. "I didn't know," Benson muttered. "He's not just any attorney," the rep continued. "He's Marcus Johnson. His firm won that class action against the 27th Precinct last year. $3 million in damages." The full weight of his situation hit Benson like a physical blow. He wasn't facing a simple civilian complaint that would be buried in paperwork. He was facing a skilled attorney with resources, connections, and now personal motivation. Later that afternoon, Marcus sat in the conference room at Preston and Mitchell, surrounded by the civil rights team. Samantha stood at the whiteboard, mapping out their strategy. "We've identified 7 other cases with similar patterns involving Officer Benson," she explained. 5 victims are willing to testify. "What about the internal affairs investigations?" Marcus asked. Thomas, the paralegal, shook his head. "All closed without action. But with your video evidence, we can get them reopened. The department will try to settle quietly," said Louis Shen, another partner. "They always do." Marcus looked around the room at his colleagues, then at the case files spread across the table, each representing someone who had faced what he had faced, but without his advantages. "We're not settling quietly," he said firmly. "This isn't just about Officer Benson anymore. It's about changing the system." Across town, Officer Benson sat in his supervisor's office as the captain reviewed the courthouse video. "You're suspended pending investigation," the captain said, not looking up. "And Benson, better get a good lawyer. You're going to need one." 18 months later, Marcus stood at the podium in the community center of Southside Chicago. The room was packed with people, community members, reporters, and several city officials seated uncomfortably in the front row. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning," Marcus said, his voice carrying through the speakers. "The settlement we've reached with the Chicago Police Department includes not just financial compensation for those wrongfully targeted, but meaningful reforms that will protect all citizens." Behind him on a large screen, bullet points highlighted the settlement terms: mandatory body cameras, revised training protocols, an independent review board for complaints, and quarterly public reporting of traffic stop demographics. In the audience, 7 men and women sat together in a reserved section. The other plaintiffs whose cases had joined Marcus's in the class action suit. Some had been fighting for years before Marcus's case created the momentum needed for real change. After the presentation, as people mingled and reporters gathered sound bites, an older gentleman approached Marcus. "You don't remember me," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Walter Davis. I was a juror in the Jennings case 3 years ago." Marcus shook his hand, recognition dawning. "The case against Officer Matthews." Walter nodded. "We wanted to find him guilty, but there just wasn't enough evidence. No video, no witnesses willing to testify." He looked around the room. "This is different. This will help." Across town in a small office building, Officer Richard Benson, now former officer, sat across from his new supervisor. He had been allowed to resign rather than face termination, but finding new employment had been difficult. The security company had taken a chance on him, assigning him to monitor camera feeds, no direct public contact. "6-month review looks good," his supervisor said, closing the file. "Just keep your head down and do the work." Benson nodded, grateful for the second chance, but painfully aware of how far he had fallen. The civil suit had cost him his career, his savings, and his reputation. The settlement agreement required him to complete bias awareness training, which had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about his own behavior. Back at Preston and Mitchell, changes were happening too. Marcus had transitioned from corporate law to head a new division focused on police accountability. The firm had hired 2 new associates specifically for this work, both from communities most affected by profiling. Marcus's office now featured a wall of thank you letters from people he had helped. A framed news article hung prominently. Landmark settlement changes police practices. Sometimes when case loads were heavy and progress seemed slow, Marcus would read these letters to remind himself why the work mattered. On a crisp fall evening, Marcus pulled into the parking lot of the new community legal clinic that operated on weekends. Volunteers from his firm provided free legal advice to those who couldn't afford representation. Today was the clinic's opening day. Inside, chairs were arranged in a circle rather than rows, breaking down the barrier between lawyers and those seeking help. Marcus took his seat, not at the head of the room, but as part of the circle. "Before we begin," he said to the group, "I want you to know that I'm not just here as an attorney. I'm here as someone who has experienced what many of you have." He shared his story simply, without legal jargon. When he finished, a young man spoke up. "So you're saying if this happened to you, Harvard law degree and all, it could happen to anyone?" "That's exactly right," Marcus answered. "But I'm also saying that together, we can change things. What happened to me was wrong, but it led to something important." He looked around at the faces watching him. "The system only works when we hold it accountable. That's why I'm here. That's why we're all here."